What's up everyone, we are back with more stuff about Badlands. The first two sources come from IGN. Now they sat down with director Dan Trachtenberg and covered a bunch of topics, so here are the key points. We know that when Dek lands on this planet, he's got a set of weapons with him, but later on ends up losing them. Then he has to replace them by finding things on the planet. Badlands is going to be the most recent Predator movie that's going to theaters, ever since The Predator in 2018 from Shane Black. In 2022, we got Prey, which went straight to streaming services, but it was a big hit. So we missed out on that movie going to a cinema. Then Killer of Killers was also on a streaming service when it was released. However, AMC Theaters did announce they are going to have a Prey and Badlands double feature on November 5th. Even though it's 3 years late, the movie Prey finally gets a release in theaters. The IGN interview starts off with the cool gadgets that a Predator has, which Dan says is kind of like James Bond. The sword has multiple modes. You can hold it in the normal way, then swing it around. Then it switches into Tonfa mode, which lets him use it in a different way, like a glaive. Dan says he plays a lot of World of Warcraft, and the weapon of the Demon Hunter is what inspired the sword to be used in another way. I always thought the inspiration for Dek using a sword in this way was from the game Predator Concrete Jungle, but Dan also says he missed out on that game, so I guess he never got to play it. In Concrete Jungle, the glaive is like a spear with blades on both ends, so the glaive that Dan talks about is more like the Maul in Concrete Jungle, which is how Dek would use his sword. They ask Dan this question, if he would have any interest in making a Predator video game. Dan says he would have the most amount of interest that someone could have. He is also desperate for there to be a third-person action-adventure, Uncharted, Assassin's Creed kind of open-world game with the Predator, and he hopes it could happen, which I do agree. A game like that with the Predator sounds awesome.
So you're driving the Predator franchise on the big and the small screen. Would you have any interest in working on a Predator video game?
The most amount of interest that someone could have. But no, I am desperate for there to be a third-person action-adventure, Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, that kind of open-world thing. Concrete Jungle was something that I missed, unfortunately, and was that for a long time ago, and there's just so much fun to be had game-wise, I think, with Predator. I hope it could happen.
When asked about where this movie fits into the Alien timeline, Dan says, when they were making this movie, Alien Romulus was not out yet and he didn't see it. He was aware of Alien Earth, but wasn't sure where it was going to end up. So the story of Badlands will take place well into the future, and the other Alien stories already happened. When creating a new life form that would be a good match for the Predator, Dan would make them as scary and intimidating as they could be, but also have the scope of the movie to be like David and Goliath. The fun of making Prey in 2022 was going back to the basics, while Badlands is going far beyond what you would expect. If Dan could pick any character to face off against the Predator, he mentions that Wolverine is a perfect matchup, but also adds that Lobo is very connected to the spirit of the Yautja culture. The next thing we have is an exclusive new clip of the movie, which shows Dek fighting off against those vine creatures in some wooded area. Dek would use his sword to fight back, trying his best to fend them off. But as these vines or tentacles start to surround him, Dek can only fight them off one by one. As more of them start to surround him, Dek knows the odds are greatly against him. This is a battle he will lose if he stays. So he jumps onto one of them, runs on it, and makes one final jump. He grabs onto the ledge of a rock and pulls himself up. He's safe for now. And for some reason, these vine creatures cannot or do not want to reach out for Dek outside of this wooded area. The third source for today's video is an article from April of 2025 that mentions a few important things. One of the cool things about the movie is that we're on Yautja Prime, which I think is for the first act, when Dek meets his brother and father. There's a lot in this movie from the extended universe. This is a futuristic Predator sequel with laser grappling hooks and shinier technology built from the ground up. I wanted to be very careful that I did not fall into a trap of making something more lore-focused than story-focused. I wanted to make Predator Badlands feel genre, feel very specific, and feel like an inversion of the main premise. Now the Predator is on another planet, and he's going to be hunted by things, and he has to use his guile to survive. I never thought the Predator was Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger. Predators had a code, like Hitman or Crime Underworld Goodfellas. I felt like there's something cool to explore within that culture. That's different than just adding a bunch of stuff on top of it. It felt like we're mining ideas as opposed to just throwing more at the franchise. There were many things that gave inspiration or influence to the creation of Predator Badlands. For example, Frank Frazetta, Conan the Barbarian, Spartan Thing, The Book of Eli, or Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. As inspired as I am by movies, I've been very inspired by video games like Shadow of the Colossus, where you have a protagonist paired with someone else who provides color and connection. There's a thing with a horse in Shadow of the Colossus that's devastating when you play the game. Dan might be referring to the part when the horse does not survive the collapsing bridge, but your character does survive. They watch over the edge and the horse falls to the bottom, and there's nothing they can do to help. Which might be connected to the scene when Dek watches his brother Quay get put down by his own father right in front of him. He wants to help him, but there's nothing he can do at the moment. It's a similar thing that humans go through when they form bonds with other people, and if they lose that person, we also go through trauma and sad feelings. So this scene with Dek shows that they also have bonds and connections. The very end of this article makes a very good point that I agree with. Predator Badlands is its own movie with a fresh new story. This film is going in a new direction, so it does not need any callbacks to previous movies. If you want to see the same old Predator experience, just rewatch the other movies that you like so much, because Badlands is doing something new. That's just telling you this movie is taking this franchise in a new direction, because not every story has to be the same thing as the first movie. You can't always do muscles, the jungle, and guns every single time. Sometimes you have to try something new. So that's all the updates for now in today's video around Badlands. Leave a like on the video, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.